What's going on YouTube? I am Highway to Hill and this is my bike Yamaha YZF R3. So this is going to be a long-term review of my bike. It's been 3 years. I got this bike in the November of 2018. So I'm just about to complete 3 years and I have clocked a little above 41,500 kilometers over the past 3 years. And I have had an absolute blast owning this bike. It's been such a pleasure. So this is a BS4 version, which means ABS is standard, as you can see, and the ex-showroom price of this bike was 3.49 lakhs and the on-road price that I paid was 3.96 lakhs. So let's start with the looks. Now I prefer this classic look over the new Yamaha R3 looks, which is inspired by the MotoGP bike, the M1 or the R1. Now the reason why I love this classic design is because this design flows in a very consistent manner from front to back, and I'll tell you why. See, this bike was designed to look like a R3, right? The new R3 is designed more to look like a M1, right? The MotoGP M1 bike or the R1 bike. And a lot of manufacturers are doing this nowadays. All the smaller bikes are made to look like the bigger bikes, and which is fine, I think, which is great. You get the looks, the super bike looks, the MotoGP looks of the bike. But if you look at the new gen R3, the front half of the bike looks like the MotoGP bike, and then the rear half looks like this bike. And somehow I feel that some of the geometries and design doesn't flow really well. For example, on this bike there is this geometry that you will consistently see from front to the tail, and I'm talking about this trapezoid design, this trapezium. Like, you see this here on the headlight, and then as soon as you move your eyes, you will see that on the mirror as well, and you will see that same trapezoid design here on the dash. Muscular tank, really sharp fairings. Again, you see that trapezoid design over here. The exhaust is also slightly different shaped. It could have easily been, most of the exhausts that you see are round, so I think this has a unique shape as well, and a really sharp tail. So as you can see, that geometry, what I'm talking about, the trapezoid geometry flows from front till back and makes this bike look really sharp. And the moment you look at this bike, this is a Yamaha, because it has that that R DNA that Yamaha keeps talking about, even though it doesn't resemble exactly like the M1 or the R1. But yes, the moment you look at this bike, it's a Yamaha, and that's why I love the classic design. Now let's talk about the engine. I'm not going to go over the specifications because the engine has almost been, it's unchanged for the past 6-7 years that this bike has been around. But one thing that we all agree, all the owners, all the auto journalists, anyone who has tested this bike, anyone who has ridden this bike, all you YouTubers, we all agree that this engine is just amazing. It's efficient, is reliable, is smooth, and it's a gem of an engine. We all agree on that. Now why is this engine so amazing? Now I think there are two reasons. So the number one reason is Yamaha's diacetyl cylinder. So this was introduced by Yamaha back in I think 2001-2002, and this was the world's first all aluminum die cast cylinder. Now what this does is that it makes the engine really light, the walls are thin, and because of this, the cooling performance of this engine is excellent. Now I'll be completely honest, the bike does heat up. When you are in traffic, in rush hour traffic during the day in Chennai, the bike will definitely heat up and it becomes uncomfortable also. you know uh, Most of the 300cc bikes that we have, they all, yes, they do heat up, but never ever over the past 41,500 kilometers the bike has stopped on me or stalled on me, or there has never been a drop in performance, and that's because of the diacetyl cylinder, because of that construction. Now, like I said, the walls are thin, so the cooling is really effective and efficient. The moment you start moving, the bike cools down really fast, and that's how you don't have drop in performance, and the engine is really efficient and reliable. And also, by the way, it has forged pistons. Now, the second reason why the engine is so smooth is because that the cylinder is offset by 7 millimeters. And if you are looking for similarities with the R1, the R1 also has the cylinders offset by 7 mm, reducing friction and making it the smooth engine that we know the R3 is. Now, since we are already talking about the engine, let's talk about the performance. I have already done a 0 to 60 and 0 to 100 videos on my channel. You can go check that out. I was able to do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds and 0 to 100 in 6 seconds. But yes, there are people who have clocked 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds and 0 to 100 in around 5.5 seconds. So yes, the bike is fast. Now I'll talk about performance, about city performance and also highway performance. Now on the city, I think this bike is a overkill. You don't need this much power. In the city, I hardly use all the gears. I only use 4 gears. I think rarely or never used the 5th and the 6th gear in the city. And you also can't use the entire RPM range. All you have to do is just open the throttle a little bit and you can overtake anybody. So the bike is like a overkill in the city, but it's fun to ride. One thing that is really annoying in the city is that you will always keep getting stuck behind slower vehicles, because you can easily overtake anybody and you will keep getting stuck behind slower vehicles. Now let's talk about the performance on the highway. On the highway, I mean, this bike just comes alive. You can be above 7,000 RPM like all the time, and you can have so much fun. The peak torque band is from 7,000 to 9,000 RPM, and beyond that, you can just get crazy top speed. The bike will just keep pulling effortlessly, till about 150, 160. It will keep on pulling. You can be cruising at 100, and if you really want to overtake someone, or if you just want instant power, just drop a gear and you can be on your way. You can be at 120, again you want to overtake someone, just drop a gear and overtake. The bike is just so much fun on the highway, and I think all the owners, R3 owners that I know, we use this bike as a sports tourer. In the western countries, in Europe and in America, I think this is like a beginner bike, but I think it's a big bike in our country, and it's a perfect sports tourer for me. Now let's talk about the ergonomics. The seat is really low. It's 780 mm, so it's a really low seat. So even if you're a short rider, even if you're like 5'4", 5'3", also even 5'2", I think you can feel totally confident and in control. And as you can see, like I said, the seat is really low. The tank height is here and the pillion seat height is here, and if you see, it's like as if the seat has been scooped out, right? You sit in the bike rather than sitting on the bike, if you know what I mean. And you slightly lean forward is not extreme like R15 or RCs, and saying that it doesn't have that great front end feel like you get on those bikes on R15 or an RC. It has a pretty 50-50 weight distribution, and that's why this is such a great sports tourer. You just slightly lean forward. I think it's like 10 or 15 degrees, and the seat is really comfortable. I have done like 10-11 hours in a single day on the saddle on this bike. I have covered 600-700 kilometers in just a single day on this bike, and you can get tired, you will break a sweat, but this bike and the engine will keep going on. It won't break a sweat. Now the pillion seat is nothing to talk about. It's pretty uncomfortable. If you are riding with someone for like 10-15 minutes is okay, but then it can get really uncomfortable, not only for the pillion but also for the rider. I think it will be more uncomfortable for the rider than the pillion, and the reason being is that there are no grab rails. There's nothing to hold on to. So if the pillion is sitting, they'll probably hold you or put their hands on your shoulder, and within like 15-20 minutes you will have back pain and shoulder pain. So this bike is, I think, just meant to be ridden solo. I know a lot of people who have attached backrest and grab rails on this, but I think it completely spoils the look. So I think this is more of a single seat, like a solo bike. Now if we talk about tech and hardware, the bike really doesn't have much of tech and hardware that you see on today's modern bikes. Bluetooth, TFT color dash, ride by wire, slipper clutch, traction control. Doesn't have radially mounted brake calipers, not much of no LED headlights. It's a pretty bare bones bike, and I think that's a good thing, because it brings all the attention to this wonderful engine that we all love here on the R3. So if you're looking for lots of tech, you might have to look somewhere else, maybe a TVS Apache or a RC or a KTM Duke or any of those bikes. So the hardware is very, very basic. The only thing you get over here is just ABS, and that's about it, and has an onboard computer for self-diagnostic. If something is not working, it will just show the error over here. But apart from that, there's not much tech over here. It's a really, really basic bike. Now let's talk about the brakes. The brakes I think are sufficient. They perform well, but the feel and feedback that you expect, you don't get that, because these are axially mounted brake calipers. These are not radially mounted calipers. But what I have done is I have changed my brake pads to EBC brake pads, and that has slightly improved the performance. But otherwise I think the stock Akebono brake pads that you get are sufficient. Now the R3 comes with the Metzeler Sportec M5 tires, and these tires are excellent. It does justice to this bike, and you can extract maximum performance out of this bike. When the bike was launched, it used to come with the MRF tires, and that was, I think, one of the biggest weak points of the R3 when it was launched in India. But Yamaha rectified that in the next version of the bike, and they gave the super grippy Sportec M5. So these are my third set of tires. I've already used the Sportec M5, and then I put the Pirelli Diablo Rosso 2, and right now I am on the Apollo Alpha H1. So let's talk about some of the issues that I faced on the bike. Now I have had the starter issue. That's a common issue. I think that happens not on just this bike, on all the bikes. I had problem with my rear disc. It was bent, and I think that's because of, I suspect it was the service center's mistake, but they didn't admit it. But I think there is no other reason for the rear disc to bent. So that was an unusual one. The bulb, so this one is an all-time headlight on, and it lasts exactly like 1 year. So in 3 years I've already changed this bulb like 3 times. This is my 4th bulb right now. Fork seals, the front fork seals, they were burst and oil started leaking. This was because I think I rode on some really bad roads. and that was one of the issue. So nothing major, these are all, you know, small niggles and known issues that happens on bikes, so nothing out of the way. Another one issue right now is the availability of parts. When I got the bike in 2018, throughout 2019 and 2020, I never had issues, you know, getting parts for the bike. The moment I order, I would get the parts within the same week. It would take like 3 to 5 days. But now I think ever since the bike was stopped because of the BS6 deadline, now it's become a nightmare to get the parts. It takes a month, sometimes 2 months, and if you require like some major parts, it may take 3-4 months and above. So that's the issue right now, and it's sad that Yamaha has, you know, decided to, you know, discontinue this bike in India. Is such a great bike, is such a gem of an engine, and I think, you know, more people should have the opportunity to experience and buy this bike. I have had an absolute blast. Like I said, again I'll repeat this, it's a very bare bone bikes. There is no crazy tech, Bluetooth, TFT and all of that, but everything is comes down to this engine, that gem of an engine. And every time I ride the bike, I have a, you know, grin on my face. I'm laughing and I'm smiling like a madman under my helmet. And if you're not doing that, then you probably have the wrong bike. Now let's talk about service costs. So the first 3 services are free, and there are not a lot of other manufacturers who give this. So the first 3 service cost me like 1,900, 2,000 rupees, and thereafter it costs me somewhere, every service costs me around 3,500 to 4,500 rupees, depending on the work that you want to do. Sometimes you're changing the oil, the air filter, the oil filter as well. Sometimes you're changing brake pads and other stuff. So I think that's the average, somewhere between 3,500 to 4,500, and I think this is pretty cheap, considering the fact that this is a CKD bike and I had the Benelli TNT 300 earlier, and the service cost on that bike was really high. It was 6,000, 7,000. Now finally, before I wrap up, I just want to mention one thing. If you go on the Yamaha's corporate website, you see that Yamaha is a Kando creating company. That's their philosophy. Now what is Kando? Kando is a Japanese word for the simultaneous feelings of deep satisfaction and intense excitement that we experience when we encounter something of exceptional value. So Yamaha says on their corporate website, being the Kando creating company is our goal to offer new excitement and a more fulfilling life for people all around the world. We strive to use our ingenuity and passion to realize people's dreams and always be the ones they look up to for the next Kando. So do I feel the Kando? Yes, Yamaha, I do. And thank you so much for the Yamaha YZF R3. So that's it guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you soon in the next one. Until then, I am Highway to Hill, and you ride safe. Now the R3 comes with